This is the map of tunnels Hamas has in and around Gaza. Most importantly, this is an incomplete map because no one knows for sure how big it is. The actual tunnel system is estimated to stretch over 300 miles and is built hundreds of feet deep. It is now being used for hiding hostages, Hamas militants, and missiles. Hamas fighters also frequently use the tunnels to flank Israeli units and surprise them from the back. It's pretty much impossible for Israeli soldiers to clear out the tunnels, so the IDF has decided to flood them with water. The plan is to pump hundreds of thousands of gallons of seawater into the tunnels. So, in today's video, let's go over why these tunnels are so useful for Hamas, how Israel plans to pump water into them, and if this plan has any chance of succeeding or not. But first and foremost, be sure to hit the like button below. This type of war-related content doesn't make YouTube happy, so every like counts. Also, please consider subscribing. We are trying our best to hit 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. Let's start with a quick overview of the tunnels. Hamas has been digging tunnels for years, though using tunnels like this well predates their takeover of the Gaza Strip. The first tunnel discovered by Israel was found in 1983. The tunnels have multiple purposes, including smuggling, storage of military hardware, and for important military control centers and communication hubs. They're also utilized to move troops to different areas in the strip without detection, and are often used to get behind Israeli troops. Let's talk about each of these purposes and how tunnels are used for them. With the ongoing blockade of the Gaza Strip by both Israel and Egypt, getting what Hamas wants into the strip is a challenge. When Hamas took over the government in 2007, both nations imposed the blockade and prohibited entry and exit by sea and air. With only 3 official crossings, 2 to Israel and 1 to Egypt, it would seem that monitoring every screw, bolt, and drop of fuel or water would be trivial. However, Hamas has turned smuggling into an art form and a lucrative business in the region. New smuggling tunnels are built either in the open ground such as a grove of trees where nobody can ask for a cut of the tape, or into the basement of a malleable person who can be bribed or paid off to look the other way. Digging across the Egyptian border underground for up to half a mile, these tunnels are relatively simple to construct and can be nothing more than a hole through the dirt or a fully functional delivery tunnels with tracks for carts, lights, and ventilation. A concealed entry and exit is the most ideal, allowing goods to pass undetected by Israel's constant monitoring of the Gaza Strip. Yes, weapons, ammunition, and high-tech military gear will be brought in using these tunnels, but so will food, fuel, construction supplies, medicine, clothes, luxury items, and many other staples of modern life. With the border crossing frequently closed and high cost of bureaucracy to get the products in, it may be more reliable to smuggle an item than to take the official route. Still, if you wonder where the high-end military goods come from, this is how Hamas gets them in. And if you're doing business in Gaza, these tunnels are a fact of life. Hamas taxes for the use of the tunnels, making it an officially unofficial cost of doing business. This alternate economy is a huge source of Hamas's revenues, though Egypt is unlikely to appreciate this bypassing of their import and export controls and the associated revenues. Egypt has been actively working to stop the tunnels since 2009, including filling them with toxic gas, installing a subterranean barrier, and even pumping water from the Mediterranean Sea into the tunnels, a tactic that will be important for Israel soon. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about tactics for countering these tunnels in a bit. Of course, these are the tunnels that are at the border, crossing beneath in dozens if not hundreds of places to move goods in and out of the strip. There's an entirely different network of tunnels within the strip, perhaps over 300 miles worth, that has a completely separate purpose. It's called the Gaza Metro by the IDF, and that's what we're going to talk about next. The Gaza Metro is entirely military in nature. Tightly controlled by Hamas, these tunnels control important control centers, ammunition storages, rocket launching sites, and most recently, hostages taken during their recent attack into Israel. The tunnels can be used to transport people and goods, or fighters and ammunition, depending on what's needed that day. Unlike the smuggling tunnels, these military tunnels are dug much deeper, potentially hundreds of feet deep. Why so deep, you ask? Bunker busters. Israel already has a stockpile of bunker buster bombs from the United States, bomb that can easily penetrate over 150 feet of dirt to get to an underground tunnel or bunker. And even if it doesn't hit directly, the explosion could collapse the tunnels, but more on that later. These tunnels include larger rooms, conference and meeting rooms, offices, residential areas, munition storage, and more. Some reports even claim that certain tunnels are large enough to support vehicle traffic. They often have electricity, venting, lighting, and are made of many materials including reinforced concrete, metal, and more. A typical tunnel is 3 feet wide and 8 feet tall, allowing for the passage of a fully kitted soldier, but not two side by side. This makes them very defensible in the event of a military assault. They also snake underneath Gaza in complex patterns, interconnecting different places all across the strip. While no one tunnel system likely runs the entirety of the strip, many tunnel networks are known, and multiple independent networks run under Gaza City and the city of Khan Yunis. Entrances can be in government buildings, residential complexes, individual homes, utility buildings, and possibly even mosques and hospitals. During heavy fighting, a Hamas fighter can disappear into a tunnel in front of the Israeli advance and emerge behind the front lines to catch the soldiers from the back. These tunnels are also used to outfit and supply rocket launchers used to attack Israel. Some of the shallower combat tunnels have racks of Qassam rockets lining the walls and launchers integrated into the dugouts that can be resupplied entirely from undercover. And while rockets fly from the shallower tunnels, deep below the leadership can be discussing the next attack in a tunnel that cannot be discovered. After hearing all this, tunnels are sounding like a pretty powerful thing, aren't they? Hard to find, hard to destroy, hard to clear, but easy for Hamas to defend. However, there are some methods that can be used to slow or stop the use of a tunnel, even if only for a brief period. To reduce the threat of the smuggling tunnels, Israel and Egypt both have been creating and increasing the size of buffer zones around the Gaza Strip. Egypt initially started with a 500-meter zone, but later expanded to 1 kilometer, finally expanding to a 5-kilometer buffer zone in 2014. Israel has been maintaining a buffer zone around Gaza for years as well, though this was intended to prevent surprise attacks more than smuggling. Of course, there are military methods of dealing with these tunnels too. Israel has been destroying the entrances to the tunnels and homes there beneath for years. Bombing the entrances and houses does take a smuggling tunnel out of service, though usually it's only for a few weeks. Egypt has deployed toxic gas into tunnels, but this doesn't permanently stop the use of a tunnel. They have also sealed entrances and even begun digging up tunnels. As of August 2014, 9 years ago, Egypt had destroyed 1,659 smuggling tunnels, but more are built day in and day out. Palestinian President Abbas argued that smuggling tunnels had produced 1,800 millionaires and were used for smuggling weapons, drugs, cash, and equipment. He even advocated flooding the tunnels and demolishing the homes that had entrances. In September 2015, Egypt began flooding the tunnels with seawater, though this was ended by February 2016 due to the reported environmental disaster and the catastrophic effects on the livelihood of Palestinians. Israel has focused primarily on destroying the entrances to the tunnels, usually with bombs. During 2015 Israel-Gaza conflict, Israel launched a ground offensive into Gaza to destroy cross-border tunnels, finding and eliminating 31 tunnels that projected into Israel. And of course, there's the buffer zone that was already mentioned, which makes it more expensive to tunnel under ever-increasing distances. Countering the combat tunnels and the deep tunnels beneath Gaza requires a bit more work. Of course, there's the standard method of a military assault into the tunnels. Each one would be painstakingly hard, going meter by meter, watching for traps, dealing with constant attacks, and watching out for hostages. The losses in Israeli manpower would be immense, and the question would always remain, did we get them all? Collapsing the entrances would temporarily block the tunnels, but would not permanently solve the problem. And the question still remains whether you got all the entrances or not. Collapsing them with bombs is a possibility. Israel does have a stockpile of GBU-28 bunker-busting bombs. Even if there is no penetration, the 600 pounds of explosives inside can collapse nearby tunnels, and it penetrates up to 160 feet of dirt. Better bunker busters are available in US inventories, and Israel has requested some. Still, these bombs are no guarantee either, which leaves flooding the passages with either toxic gas or, in this case, water as the only option. Let's take a look at what Israel has in store for these tunnels. 5 large pumps have been assembled north of the Al-Shadi refugee camp over the last month, each one capable of pumping hundreds of thousands of gallons of seawater into the tunnel. This option has been under discussion for a while, weighing the potential human cost of soldiers entering the tunnels compared to the environmental impact of thousands upon thousands of gallons of salt water contaminating the soil and aquifer beneath Gaza. Even this plan isn't foolproof. The process is slow, allowing a lot of time for Hamas to evacuate, potentially taking the hostages to other locations. It may also leave gaps and even not fully fill the tunnels. However, any tunnel system that is mostly filled in this manner is permanently disabled. Additionally, finding all the tunnels is a challenge. While some are relatively known, others may be concealed, allowing Hamas to continue their operations deep beneath the surface. Israel claims to have identified 800 tunnels so far, though they also know the network is bigger than what they have uncovered so far. A person familiar with the plan said, "We are not sure how successful pumping will be since nobody knows the details of the tunnels and the ground around them. It is impossible to know if that will be effective because we don't know how seawater will drain in tunnels no one has been in before." This plan may be tremendously effective on its own, but it is more likely to be one of many tools used to clear Hamas's tunnel and render them ineffective or destroyed. The impact of potentially millions of gallons of seawater is impossible to gauge both militarily and on Gaza Strip's population. The aquifers beneath the city is already contaminated, and the bulk of Gaza's water comes from desalination plants. This could also destroy the soil of Gaza, which is already polluted. Not to mention that whatever substance might be stored in those tunnels could also enter the groundwater or seep into the soil. As former US Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Mick Mulrow said, "Dogs are most effective, but need soldiers to follow up and clear the tunnels. Robots move slow and break, and using humans is a risky move." Using water over a longer period would force Hamas fighters out, but if you salted the water, it could compound the humanitarian crisis. Lastly, I do want to mention that this is a very fast-moving news. By the time you're watching this video, the situation on the ground might have changed. That's why you cannot just rely on videos if you want to stay informed. And that's a big reason behind why we launched Global Recaps, a geopolitical newsletter that covers world news in a quick and simple way. Every day we send out an email directly to your inbox that covers the most important world news that you can read in less than 5 minutes. Best of all, it's completely free. So if you want to keep up with this topic and more news around the world, sign up by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen. It's one of the best newsletters for anyone who's interested in geopolitics, and I'm betting you that you would love it.